amazing. Jennifer, thank you so much for agreeing to talk to me today. I'm really excited to hear all about your experience as an assistance dog trainer, and of course to talk about lovely Griffin, who's 5 months old today. Happy 5th month birthday.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun to talk about.
Oh, excellent. Cool. So just give us a little rundown of your experience to date. I know that you trained with assistance dogs in Hawaii, is that correct?
Yes, that's right. So I guess that path started off when I was doing my undergrad degree in England. I started volunteering at a guide dog school because it was in the same town, and I wanted something that wasn't to do with like writing essays. So I did a few shifts in their kennels and got hooked. And sort of through that year, one thing led to another, and I found myself in Hawaii doing an internship to sort of learn how to train assistance dogs for people with spinal cord injuries. Was sort of the biggest group that the organization was aimed at, and that 6 months turned into a few years. It just sort of kept going and going. So that was sort of my introduction to it all.
Amazing. And I think, you know, when you use the term assistance dog, perhaps the first thing that is front of mind for people is the idea of a dog living with somebody in their home and only to turn light switches on and open doors and that kind of thing. But obviously it's a much more diverse area of training, and I mean, these dogs do all sorts, don't they, and work with all sorts of different people. So what is an assistance dog, and what is an assistance dog's role?
It's sort of a huge umbrella, really. Assistance dogs is such a general term for things. So for example, when I worked at the assistance dog organization in Hawaii, we trained so there was assistance dogs, and then under that umbrella you had service dogs, which was the full public access, the sort of classic image of what a service dog is. So, you know, the whole walking next to them, going to the store, opening the doors, that kind of thing. And then we had facility dogs, which is a really, you don't find that here in this country, but it's getting...
I've not heard that term before.
So facility dogs are placed full-time with either a hospital, you have a hospital facility dog, or you have a courthouse facility dog. And a hospital facility dog works full-time with someone on the nursing staff or on the child life team, and their main role is to provide, I don't use the word comfort because that sounds really basic, but they work in the hospital. They go through all the treatments with kids with cancer or things like that. It's a really great program. I really love it. And then the courthouse facility dogs are similar, but they're placed usually at a prosecutor's office or with a police force, and they accompany victims of crime, mostly women and children, through the sort of interview process, the medical exams.
Wow.
It's really powerful part, and something that I actually enjoyed the most.
Wow.
So you had those things, and then you had sort of general therapy dogs, which they don't have public access or anything, but they kind of, you take them to nursing homes, or, you know, that we have that kind of thing here. But
yeah, I spoke to Doug the pug, Doug the therapy.
Oh, that's right. Yes, I did see that.
Therapy a few weeks ago, all about his work. So the facility part of that sounds really fascinating.
Yeah, it's so interesting and so cool just how, you know, you take a child who's been a victim of a crime or witnessed quite a horrific crime, and they're in a, you know, some sort of office that they've never been in. The first thing that can happen is, you know, that child has lost all sense of power in their life, and they come in and they're, you know, greeted by this lovely soft dog who they can be given the leash and, you know, walk down the corridor, do basic training to get some confidence. And then a lot of times the kid doesn't want to tell this strange, you know, man or woman about this horrific thing, but they might want to tell the dog.
Absolutely brilliant. And we don't have that in this country, were you saying?
No, it's starting to happen here. There's a program called Justice Support Dogs that's has one dog here at the moment that they got from America. COVID has sort of put a stymie on their plans, I think, to sort of increase for now. But I worked with the Courthouse Foundation and Courthouse Dog Foundation in America, and they're sort of trying to get the Europeans involved. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And if people want to get involved with guide dogs here in the UK, what sort of opportunity is there for the public to get involved there? Is it quite separate in terms of the dogs that are being trained and then the dogs who the public would have access to perhaps at events and that type of thing? How is it structured here in the UK?
Here in the UK, there's sort of a few main organizations. So of course you have guide dogs, which is sort of the biggest, the most established. I think that's what people think mostly whenever I say assistance dogs. They say, oh, you train guide dogs. It's like, no, not exactly. But here, if you want to work for them, usually you have to start off in the kennels and then work your way up, which is a really great way of doing it, especially if you just want to get started in the industry. The members of public, you can be a puppy raiser, which you get the puppy at sort of 8 to 10 weeks old, and you do all the socializing and training for that basic period before handing them back for their advanced training. A similar thing with sort of Dogs for Good, which is the assistance dog charity here, and hearing dogs for deaf people. It's a similar sort of process that the public can get involved. And usually they have demo dogs. That's who you see sort of out and about. They're not placed with anyone, but they've gone through the whole full training and they're used to sort of demo what it's all about. And yeah, they're great.
Yeah. And is there an age limit for an assistance dog? Because you kind of hear about dogs that have retired and a lot of dogs who don't work anymore being rehomed. And is there a specific kind of place that people can go to if they want to rescue a retired assistance dog?
They're usually in high demand. It depends on the program, but a lot of them have lists that you can get on for, in America, we call them career change dogs. They're the ones that may get started within the training process and for various reasons can't be placed with someone, and that can be a health issue or they're too ball obsessed or something. And then you do have the dogs that have retired, and it might be different with the bigger organizations. I worked for a small organization and it was more just when the dogs sort of let you know, you kind of tell, and that could be from 9, 10 years old, 11 years old. It's just dependent. So you want one of those dogs, get on a list, but it's a long wait.
A waiting list, my goodness. And when does training start then for assistance dog work? So I really like that idea of being a puppy raiser. How long would that initial period be? It must be so difficult to give them back though.
I know, I've done some puppy raising and it is really challenging. The first one was the worst. You're very protective of them, or like they're mine, but they're not, at all. It depends on the setup. So if we bred puppies ourselves, then you started to select or go through temperament testing starting at about 6 weeks old, and then sort of start putting them into that process straight off. If they go to puppy raisers, usually that's about 8 to 10 weeks old, and lasts about. We had kindergarten, which was sort of to 4 or 5 months, and you had basic training, which was up to 12 months, and then you had advanced training.
Yeah. So, and is there somewhere along that way, along the path, that you would kind of be able to, being an expert in the field, kind of be able to look at a dog and think, actually, they're not going to make it, they're not cracked up for this, and it's not fair to actually expect that from them?
Yeah, and the industry average of all the dogs that start in a program, only 30% go all the way through to be fully fledged assistance dogs. It's a very small number, which I think is good because it makes sure that you are definitely having dogs that not only can do the job, but they want to do the job. That's pretty important to me. You can see the dogs that have the drive or the willingness and love their work, and then you see the dogs that I would rather just chase the ball, So it's a very small number, and you do temperament tests or constant testing throughout that period. Usually, I think you can tell by about 6 months old, the ones that definitely wouldn't, and you'd start putting down a different path. But sometimes it does, you know, further down the line there might be something that comes up, or it just depends on the dog, really.
Yeah. So that's quite a low number, isn't it? That means that there's 70% of dogs then needing to be rehomed at some stage. But you think the waiting list for a dog like that actually warrants the percentage that don't make it, or does it mean that there's a lot of dogs in rescue?
I don't believe that they go into rescue at all. If you think of all the different organizations and all the different uses for the dogs,
yes,
oftentimes, you know, for example, guide dogs might have a dog that is a little bit too, you know, a guide dog is a specific type of assistance dog. They have to sort of be able to disobey their owners, which is really unusual for an assistance dog. You're looking for a really sort of willing participant who hangs off the every word of their client. But for a guide dog, you know, if someone's saying cross the street and the guide dog is like, no, there's a car coming, they have to have a very specific temperament. So they might not be suited for that work, but they're usually then offered to the police or hearing dogs, because it's a very different, you know, there's quite a circle of dogs being around, which I think is great. And in the assistance dog organization I worked for, they might not have made it as service dogs, but they might have made fantastic facility dogs. They might have made fantastic dogs for sort of the scent work that was going on for research, or, you know, so you do have quite a small list of dogs that actually don't get any job, so to speak. But yeah, that's
really nice. It's almost like a company restructure, isn't it? If you're doing so well at the job and the job doesn't suit you, it's really cool if your boss actually just shifts you around the organization somehow into a role that does suit you. That makes a lot more sense.
And it makes it good as well. A lot of these are charities. The cost of a dog in general, you know, from the start, the purchase of the dog or the breeding of the dog, all the way through the time, the vets, the trainers, you know, they could be 40 grand or $40,000, you know, by the end of it. So it's quite a commitment to first select a dog to start that process from a financial point of view. And then you're starting to see they're not make it. It's harder to then, you know, balance that with, oh, here's a pet dog, you know.
Yeah. And how does the assistance dog training differ from the type of dog training that I would do, for example? So helping members of the public raise a happy and well socialized puppy versus training a puppy that is going to go on and assist somebody.
It's not too different, to be honest. It's really very similar, especially that first year of life. It's about exposure, experience. I think it's a little bit more focused on and I know we do this as pet dog trainers, but there's more of an emphasis on calm, collected, and focused on a handler from that early age in different environments. Whereas here, I feel like we do sort of are like, oh, we've got to experience in a positive way, but actually with the assistance dogs, it's a little bit more, yes, experience in a positive way, but also teaching settling from a very early age and teaching handler focus from a very early age, which does obviously play into what we do, but I do think that that's a little bit different, I think.
Yeah.
But it's very similar.
A lot of sort of impulse control training and that kind of thing as well. Working with the emotions, I guess, would be important. And then in terms of actually training dogs, guide dogs, for example, to work around the home, we had a catch up before this interview and you said essentially it's trick training.
A lot of it is trick training. It's a way of keeping it fun and interesting. A lot of it is starting off just basic behaviors of, you know, them picking up a sock. Don't freak out that they've picked out, you know, when they're a little, you know, you sort of want to nurture that and sort of build on that in the future. So yeah, it's just basically comes down to trick training, but then trick training generalized into as many high distraction environments as possible. That's the, you know, they need to be able to lead their person out of a situation in a busy crowd. They need to be able to pick up a credit card on the floor in the middle of Asda, you know. So I think it's more trick training, but then the generalization and proofing process is so much more than what we do as pet dog trainers.
It's just, I can't quite get my head around it, because how, you know, you sort of think you've trained the dog up, they're ready to be handed over to their caregiver. But then how do you know whether, especially if they're working with a blind person, how do you know as a trainer then that they're actually going to go on and be okay and be able to complete all of those tasks? And how can, you know, because we can't be 100% sure with dogs, can we, that they're going to behave in a certain way every single time in all of these different environments, because you can't control what's going to happen in that environment. So somebody may drop their credit card in Tesco's, but then perhaps the fire alarm goes off, or there's a big kind of a fight breaks out or something, and then that person is just there with their dog, but there's no trainer around to help them in that situation. How does it work? I guess, are they having regular check-ins with the trainer and revision sessions, that sort of thing?
This is where I think selection of dogs, or starting the right dogs off for the right job, is really, really important. The Assistance Dogs organisation that I worked for is accredited by Assistance Dogs International, which is sort of like an accreditation body that covers internationally. Every dog, every organisation has to hit really specific high standards. And the follow-up process is immense. It's constant all the time, because people's disabilities or needs change throughout the dog's life as well. So then there's lots of retraining, but starting off with the right dog, you're looking for a bomb-proof dog is sort of what you hear mostly, bomb-proof, bomb-proof. If that puppy startles at 6 weeks and recovers very slowly, that's not going to make for a good assistance dog. When you go through temperament testing, you do lots of little tests, like you put the puppy in a room it's never been in before, watch its interaction with the environment. Once it's comfortable, dropping something far away from the puppy and seeing how they react. If the one that runs and hides immediately will not be a good fit, the one that jumps but then turns around to investigate, oh, okay, yeah, keep going. So it's a lot about picking the right puppy, and also with assistance dogs work, we train the dog up until 2 years old. Say the dog is fully trained or in as many different environments as possible, then they're matched with someone, then you go through specific training with that person, and then hand off and then catch up. So it's a lot of time, and that's why 30% make it and the rest don't.
Course. And of course then it's not just the dog you're training, it's the caregiver as well, isn't it?
Yeah
How to actually communicate with their dog, so you've got to work with them as well. I mean, it sounds really hard work for the dog as well. Do the dogs get a break? Do they get to go on holiday, or are they working the whole time? How does that work?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's where it's important to have the right dog, but also for the owner to understand that they are still a dog.
Exactly.
A lot of organizations, and I do agree with this, don't have the owner pay for the dog. You know, some organizations do charge the amount to the owner, but then I feel like that creates an imbalance. Then they're buying a fancy robot, or think they're buying a fancy robot that should perform all the time, sort of thing. So it's a bit of a financial element to assistance dogs work as well, I think, that comes into it,
because it's so much, it must be so much about the emotions for them as well. And a lot of what you're talking about in those early temperament testing, it's about the personality of the dog, really.
Yep, for sure.
And obviously that must have had some impact when you were choosing Griffin from the litter as well. Did that sort of play a part in your early sort of decision making process with Griffin as well, do you think, your experience?
It did. It was interesting because it was the first time I was selecting for myself as opposed to a future person or a future role, or, you know, whatever that entails. I didn't do the full temperament test, and that's not necessary, and also a little bit awkward to try to do that with a litter in someone's house during COVID, and you know. But there were a few things that I did when I met them that I knew were the sort of more important ones to me. I knew that I wanted a male. There were 4 males in the litter, so that will automatically sort of narrowed down my selection.
Yes, so what temperament test did you do when you were choosing Griffin from the litter?
I wanted a really nice sort of laid back dog, as much as possible, coming from like a working gun dog line. But I wanted him to be pretty sort of human orientated. So just sitting with them, watching for the ones giving you eye contact. We would turn them gently onto their back in your lap. The ones that went super rigid and looked away were obviously really uncomfortable with that, with doing that. Griffin just completely relaxed and stared up into my eyes.
Oh, good boy.
Sort of, feel the deal. I did sort of make a few noises, not loud noises, but just sort of clapping my hands, and I was wearing boots, so I sort of stamped my feet a little bit, just to see which ones jumped and looked a little bit off and which ones were wanted to investigate, and Griff was all in for that. So just like little things like that I was looking for.
And that's good advice for all owners, I think, when they're going to see puppies and going to see litters. And, especially at the moment, I think, with all of the restrictions with COVID, I mean, a lot of my clients haven't actually had the opportunity to go and see litters. And I'm advising them that that's not great, and that they should be seeing the litter and they should be seeing the puppies with their mum and watching how the mum works. And so what was Griffin's mum like, out of interest?
She was gorgeous, and the breeder was we had talked about it before. I said, I'm not, she said, I don't want anyone to buy a puppy without coming to visit them, so we'll make it work. And that's really important to me. When I was there, I saw the litter without the mother, and then I saw them with the mother, and then I also saw them with the breeder had kept a female from a previous litter, a couple of years old, so that was great to see. The mother was she was great, super friendly, loved, went straight to the puppies when she came into the room, even though they were a little bit older, 5 weeks old, I think they were at the time.
Because they can get over them by then, can't they, the mums?
Some of the mums, you can say, like, we did some breeding, and then I had a few sort of experiences with that sort of process, and sometimes by the age of 4 weeks, you can see the mothers that are like, oh, get them off me.
Yes, of course, because you chose Griff during lockdown. I'd forgotten about that.
It was I went to see him at the beginning of December. So I don't think it was sort of breaking the rules. We weren't in sort of a full lockdown at that point yet. It was definitely, but I sort of felt like I'm making this decision for the next sort of 10, 12 years. I want to make the right decision. And actually, with all the videos and stuff that she sent before, I had one that I had my eye on, and turns out he was not the one that I chose.
Gosh, that's so interesting. And again, having so many conversations like that with people at the moment who hopefully will find this video interesting and some help. So what would be having gone through that yourself, what would be your kind of top tips and your advice for people that are going through that at the moment, and that are sort of on this journey of finding a breeder, and once they found the breeder, having the right types of conversations, because you can't rely on photos. You've quite rightly pointed out that even if you get video footage, it's not the same as being in the room with them. And I think even with all of these COVID restrictions, a responsible breeder will make it happen and will enable you to be able to go and see that litter, even if it is just standing in the front garden looking through the window and not being in the same room, for example.
She even offered that, when we were talking before, she said, even if you just come to the window, we'll make it work, sort of thing. So that, I was happy with her. Things that I would look for, just breeders that sound like they know what they're doing, which sounds basic, but just sort of like when you say, oh, how is the mother with them? I don't necessarily need to hear, oh, great, she loves them. Okay, what does that mean?
Big statement.
I want a breeder that's really interested in hearing about me. I don't want them just to give them to anyone. I want a selective breeder as well. I want them to be on top of vaccinations, or at least that process of vet checks. Some breeders don't vaccinate first, but they do a vet check, which is, you know, depending on where you are, and that's fine. But I had lots of conversations about what vaccination protocol to use, scent blankets, microchips, you know, just, you can just tell by talking to them if they're looking for a quick sale.
Yeah.
Things as well, the breeders are around the puppies constantly. And one thing that I did when I wanted to choose a puppy is I didn't tell her what I was looking for. I asked her what her opinion of the litter was, what she's seen. Just in conversation, they'll come out, you know, they'll say, oh, they're all fantastic. If you keep them talking, they'll eventually say, oh, that's loudmouth over there. Or this one, oh, she always gets on top of her siblings and gives them what for or something. You know, you can then sort of
she's the bossy one, or
maybe off subject, but just that was important to me too, just to hear what she thought of the litter.
Yes, no, definitely. And I think as well, you know, don't be frightened to push back with breeders as well, and to actually say, you know, because I think a lot of people feel that they have to agree and do everything that the breeder is suggesting, and some breeders who perhaps aren't responsible and are just keen to, you know, they're breeding for the wrong reasons, they're keen to get the money and they're keen just to get the puppies out, and it's the breeders who won't be vaccinating pre the puppies leaving and won't be providing a puppy contract. And you know, if you actually push back with a responsible breeder, they will accommodate you and they will say, yeah, okay, it's fine, we wanted the puppies to leave at 8 weeks, but if you want them to stay for another 2, then we can accommodate that. If you start getting pushback from your breeder and they're saying, no, puppies have to go at 8 weeks, and no, you can't come around, and actually I'm going to go and meet you in a service station car park, red flag, isn't it?
Yeah, that was a big one too. I'm picking up my puppy from you know, from them. I'm not meeting them anywhere. It's been so challenging because I'm sure there are plenty of really great breeders, and I understand the sort of driving, you know, hundreds of miles for puppies, but it's worth it.
Absolutely.
You got it there.
Yeah. And if you can't make something work under the current restrictions, then just don't do it. Wait.
Yeah.
It's got to be right. I'd love to see Griff. Should we bring him on camera?
Yeah. Do you want me to go get him?
Let's get Griff. Here he is. Oh my goodness, he's so big. Hello, darling.
If you make little animal noises, he will look at you.
He's good with the computer screen, isn't he? Because sometimes that can scare them.
Yeah, he's not bad. He's not bad with the computer screen. It's more the fact that my attention is not on him that he struggles with.
Yeah. Bless him. How much bigger do you think he's going to get with your experience of the breed?
At least double.
At least up, my goodness.
His dad was, I think, 40 kilograms, and his mum was about 35, and he's currently 15. So, which was actually what I wanted. I wanted a really big lab.
Yeah, he's going to be almost mastiff, isn't he?
He's going to be huge.
Good boy. Yeah, we've been talking about you. Look at his lovely big paws as well. Oh, bless him. Jennifer, thank you so much. That's been such a brilliant interview, so interesting. And
thank you.
I host all of those helpful links and websites that you mentioned as well. I look forward to keeping in touch. See you soon.
Yeah, you too. Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye.